Hey Anton, I need help writing an essay.
What type? You want to convince somebody?
Nah, it's more fact-based and authoritative.
Well, aren't you going to persuade them over to your side?
Um, yeah, but no.
Oh, you're talking about argumentative essays. What's up, everybody? Today we're going to talk about argumentative essay. At a glance, this type of essay may seem just like another word for persuasive essays, but they're actually very different. Well, actually, they are similar in that they both take a stance on a debatable issue, but that's where their similarities end. See, argumentative essays and persuasive essays differ on three key points, and these are purpose, tone, and result. Let's dive in. Purpose. The main purpose of an argumentative essay is to argue a certain point, while the main purpose of a persuasive essay is to persuade the audience over to their side of the fence. So naturally, argumentative essays are more formal and authoritative in how they are constructed, with tons of facts and evidence to support their stance and their side of the argument. Whereas persuasive essays are friendlier, more conversational, and more informal relative to argumentative essays. And finally, as to end result, argumentative essays exist to establish that the writer is correct in their stance on that certain debatable issue. Whereas persuasive essays exist primarily to convince the audience over to the writer's side of the fence, regardless of the method that the writer employed in convincing the audience. So now that we've established their differences, you might ask, why do argumentative essays exist if convincing your audience over to your side of the fence is not guaranteed in the first place? Now, did I say that argumentative essays are not good at convincing people over to your side? Nope, that's not always the case. See, it really depends on your audience. In the academe and the legal sphere, fact is king. So in that realm, argumentative essays usually have the upper hand. My friends are going to talk about this in detail.
Now, let's discuss the principles and guidelines in writing an argumentative essay. First, you have to choose your topic. The topic may be something about COVID-19, mental health, social issues, or simply your stand on pineapples and pizza. The topic must be interesting and it must be something in which you already have a stand. Second, you have to research. Look for books, articles, write-ups, journals by credible sources and experts to strengthen your argument. Third, you have to write your outline. The outline includes the introduction, body, and the conclusion. Fourth, you have to fill in the blank. You have to fill in the outline with the relevant research details. And lastly, you have to edit or proofread. Let's now proceed to the strategies in writing an argumentative essay. First, we have the classic approach. The classic approach is the most common way in writing an argumentative essay. It includes the introduction, the thesis statement, the arguments, the refutation, and the conclusion. Second, we have the Rogerian approach. The Rogerian approach does not follow a specific structure. However, the author recognizes or sympathizes to both arguments even though he or she favors one. And lastly, we have the Pullman approach. The author finds a common ground within an argument and eliminates a superfluous argument.
In choosing an appropriate topic for your argumentative essay, consider these two questions. Number 1, does the topic have two sides? And number 2, how much do you know about the topic? A good way to organize your ideas is to use a pro and con pie chart, which looks like this. What exactly then is a thesis statement and how do you compose it? A thesis statement is the basic stand that an author takes and the main point that he wishes to make. It contains the controlling idea of the essay and therefore gives the direction and the unity to all the separate elements of the writing. The purpose of the essay is to convince the reader that the thesis is indeed a valid one. Remember that a good thesis statement is more than a statement of fact and makes an arguable assertion about a topic. It also limits the topic to be narrow enough to make it more manageable, but not too broad for the scope of an essay. A writer develops a thesis by asking questions about the topic and by focusing on a basic question which the topic raises. The answer to such a question will be your thesis, what you think about a specific topic. So the topic is your question and the thesis is your answer to that question. On the other hand, What is a topic sentence? The topic sentence and the thesis are, well, analogous. In other words, the topic sentence is to the paragraph what the thesis is to the entire essay, chapter, or book. While the thesis gives unity to the essay, the topic sentence gives unity to the paragraph by developing one major point suggested in the controlling idea of the thesis. Like the thesis, the topic sentence is integral to the organization of the essay. Each paragraph should have a topic sentence. Note that it contains the dominating idea that the paragraph will develop. It normally appears as the first sentence in each paragraph, and it is a single declarative statement.
The next part of this topic is about the use of supporting details. The author's point is the major idea, and the supporting details are how the author persuades the reader that the point is correct. So, what are supporting details? The term supporting details can be defined as additional information that explains, defines, or proves an idea. They have clear and direct connection with the main ideas, and they are backed up by evidence or illustrated by examples. So basically, supporting details are pieces of factual information that back up the main idea the author is trying to convey. These details clarify the main idea the author is describing and bring it into clear focus for those who are reading or listening to what the author is saying. So supporting details actually have a straightforward purpose. They provide information to explain and bolster your viewpoint, claim, or belief. The simplest and most effective approach to persuade someone else to understand things your way is to provide them the exact information you used to make your conclusion. The supporting details are just meant to give more information about a situation. They are meant to support your point, meaning that without these details, you may not succeed in making your argument successfully. There are actually two kinds of supporting details, and these are the major details and the minor details. The major details are the primary points that support the main idea, and while the major details explain and develop the main idea, they in turn are expanded upon the minor supporting details. So this is basically the relationship between main ideas, major supporting details, and the minor supporting details. The main idea is general, the major supporting details are specific, and the minor supporting details are the most specific. So with this, the minor details support the major details, and the major details support the main idea. So there are different types of supporting details. There can be any kind of facts that help to develop or support the main idea you are trying to convey. So these are vivid descriptions, examples, quotations from authorities, results, statistics, graphs, comparisons, and contrasts.
To make sure that you have a strong argumentative essay, it is important that your essay has a strong and effective structure. To be able to achieve that, there are two common ways for you to structure your argumentative essay. First is to block pattern, and second is to point-by-point pattern. Block pattern is an argumentative essay structure that has 5 separate sections or blocks, hence the name. First is the introduction. Here you have to explain or introduce the issue or topic by giving background information. The last sentence of this paragraph should include your thesis statement. Second, you have the summary of the other side's argument. Third is the rebuttal of the other side's argument. Here you have to present the views and opinions of the other side's argument and explain why it is wrong or have less importance. Fourth is you have to present your counter-argument and argue that your argument is better than that of the other side. Lastly, conclusion. Here you have to summarize your own point of view. On the other hand, we have the point-by-point pattern. Just like the block pattern, it has an introduction, body, and conclusion. The difference, however, lies on how you present the other side's argument and your counter-argument. For the introduction, here you have to explain the issue in a way that your audience will have an informed opinion. It will also include the views and opinions of the other side and your own thesis statement. Second, you have to state the argument of the other side and your own counter-argument. So if the other side has 3 arguments, you have to rebut these arguments by presenting your own counter-arguments. You have to do this point by point, hence the name of the pattern. And lastly, conclusion. Here you have to summarize your own point of view to support your thesis statement.
Continuing our in-depth discussion on argumentative essays, I will now be presenting two examples. The first example is an essay entitled The Legalization of Gambling, a Question of a Friend or Foe. Here, it can be observed that the writer used a point-by-point pattern in structuring this particular argumentative essay. In the introduction, the writer presented the issue in a way that the audience or the readers are able to make their own informed opinion by presenting the views and opinions of both sides of the argument, as seen in this paragraph. And it can be observed that the thesis statement of this essay is found in the last sentence of its introduction, which reads, "The writer also recognized the cons of the legalization of gambling, such as its effects on the gambler's behavior and relationships." But in the following paragraph, the writer then provided solutions for these counter-arguments, such as government regulations and other policy. Lastly, the writer concluded this essay by summarizing his points in support of his thesis statement that the benefits of the legalization of gambling far outweigh its costs. Next example, we have an argumentative essay on the legalization of marijuana, entitled Legalize. The essay essentially commented on George Pearson's research entitled Marijuana, the Deceptive Drug. Here, it can be observed that the writer used a block pattern in his or her essay. In the introduction, the writer gave a background on the issue of the legalization of marijuana, and similar to the first example, it can also be observed that the thesis statement of this essay is found in the last sentence of the introduction, which essentially provides that the author is not convinced by the conclusions of the said research against the legalization of marijuana. Thereafter, the writer presented the other side's argument or the arguments against the legalization of marijuana and debunked each one of them, such as the argument that marijuana causes brain damage, but this has already been discredited by newer tests. The writer also presented his or her own arguments and provided evidences, therefore, as provided in this paragraph. To conclude, the writer summarized his or her points made in support of his or her stance on this particular issue, similar to our first example.
So how does learning about argumentative essay fit into law practice? Here are two reasons. The first one is that it makes us critical thinkers and analytical writers. Law practice requires critical thinking and analytical writing. Kabilan said that critical learners must be able to cite and identify good reasons for their answers and opinions. They should be able to correct methods and procedures. They should be able to cope with regularities, uniformities, irregular circumstances, special limitations, constraints, and overgeneralizations. Also, in a knowledge society, it is fundamental that we understand, elaborate, organize, and integrate information. The second reason is that it makes us better arguers. According to Nussbaum and Spro, effective arguing involves generating arguments as well as understanding, evaluating, weighing, combining arguments and counter-arguments from different sources and perspectives to support a final position. C. Learning to argue is essential for individuals to develop in their personal and academic life. Being able to defend your position and consider others' perspective is one of the core abilities for active citizenship, as well as for political and institutional transformations. Unrao said that the thinker reflects upon statements, and before anyone embraces a claim, he or she is going to look for good reasons to do so. Arguing effectively to get the judge, your clients, the other parties, and other people to listen to your side of the story is essentially a lawyer's job. And by effective, this one-liner, raising one's voice cannot win an argument. Rather, it is by giving evidence and providing reason that makes a point valuable.
So there you have it, guys. Hope you learned something from me and my friends. Now it's your turn to go out and preach. Go get them, judges, clients, lawyers, and academics with your newfound knowledge on argumentative essays. Have a great one. Peace out.
To make sure,
No, I'm just gonna talk about argumentative essays and persuasive essays. I really have no idea what I'm gonna talk about because this is just the beginning. And the beginning is always the hardest part.
The examples and
It is important that your essay has a strong and strong. The clear.
Hello everyone, good day.
Argumentative essays, the main purpose of an argument are
Examples of argumentative essays, and we will be discussing.
It is important that your essay how to.
you can do this. You can do this.
We should be able to correct methods.
To make sure that you have a strong and effective. Hindi ko strong and effective.
My friends are gonna talk about. My friends are gonna talk about this.
An effective structure.